Am I too late? Did I miss it? Can we talk about the Redmi for just a second here? They make too many phones. They're really good phones, but really, too many. I might need to shoot a separate editorial on that, but I finally got to spend a little quality time with the Redmi Note 11S. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but it's another terrific option for the wallet-friendly tier of smartphones. Recently, I've been covering some Pocos, the Infinix, and as soon as I'm done with this video here, I'm off to write a script on some TCL action. I'm gonna try and abbreviate this review a little because we're in really familiar territory and we're making excellent use of the Xiaomi parts bin. This general look is reminiscent of the Poco M4 I reviewed a little while back. And it's interesting to see where different parts and pieces are used for different markets and labels. The Note 11S is balancing some nice lifestyle features against using only LTE radios. Immediately, the 90 Hz display is a standout in this price tier. This is a very nice screen. Nothing against some of those other LCDs we've seen at lower prices, but as a content consumption gadget, a little brighter, more colorful, better contrast, it's pretty good for movies. We keep my favorite bells and whistles. The power button fingerprint sensor is fantastic. It's dual SIM with memory card expansion. The headphone jack, that's awesome. IR blaster, that's great. And you get a case and a charger in the box. It's refreshing how much more complete the overall experience is on cheaper phones than on more premium tier hardware. Against, say, a recent Poco, we're trading SoCs, likely because of 5G support and pricing on different chips, but the Note is using the MediaTek Helio G96. I mean, this slots in really close to a Dimensity 800 or a Snapdragon 690, just nicely solid mid-ranger fare. Plenty of compute power for messaging, social media, and some low moderate gaming. I always like to show off dead cells. It's really well optimized for sort of nicer mid-ranger Android phones. We can just about keep up with it here on the Note with the graphics settings set a little higher. More demanding titles, you'll probably need to turn the graphics settings down. And speaking on performance, it's not hard getting the phone to twitch a bit if you're multitasking. Like if you're installing an app in the background and you're trying to work on something else at the same time, you're definitely gonna see those stutters. And occasionally you need to let the phone wake up a bit. Like just because this has a 90 Hz refresh rate display, it doesn't mean you avoid those occasionally pokey moments trying to swipe through your app drawer. But if you're focusing one app at a time, you gotta push this a bit before the Note blinks. We still haven't quite caught the power of premium phones from 2018, Snapdragon 845s, but we're pretty close. There's a respectable amount of compute power on tap at surprisingly low prices. Now, the camera. This is an interesting balance of compromises. At once, we get a shockingly large sensor. In surface area, it's similar to what we'd see in a Galaxy S22, but we're obviously not gonna get all the bells and whistles of using this larger sensor. There's no hardware stabilization that I can see, but the software stabilization is pretty good. Unfortunately, video only comes in at 1080p 30. Photos from this phone are pretty nice, if maybe a bit hyped up on the saturation for my tastes. Low light photos are decent if you can hold still. There are well-stocked pro modes to tune in the look of a photo or a video. There's no RAW capture, but there is a 108 megapixel JPEG mode. From the main sensor, it's a very good all-rounder camera. But the rest of the supporting sensors are all right. The 8 megapixel ultra wide is fun for a one-shot panorama, but it's not something I'd lean on too heavily. And the 2 megapixel macro isn't great. You can get closer, but more often than not, you'll get a better shot with a 2x zoom from the main sensor. You'll definitely end up with a nicer depth of field. I'm not expecting a feature-complete flagship killer in this price, but it is really interesting to see how costs balance out a spec sheet. Now, what's just a joy about these wallet-friendly phones though, we techies have grossly underestimated how much of a perk it is to pair a low-power SoC with a big battery. Seriously, it's so easy to get a solid 2 days of use out of this phone. And talk to your family and friends on older phones. Ask them, do they really need more compute power, or if they'd want to add a half a day of runtime to their current level of compute power. I know a good chunk of folks who will quickly choose the latter. So, wrapping this up, there's not much to fret about. Yes, the software is older, running Android 11. I wouldn't imagine there's going to be multiple years of operating system updates, and I'm still a little bothered by Xiaomi's app and advertising strategy. But in a price to performance conversation, it's really difficult finding objectively better phones for communication, social media, and video streaming. The game right now is mixing different parts and pieces to land in this roughly sub $300 price tier. We're kind of flush with options in this group right now, and it's a little overwhelming trying to keep up with them all for reviews. Just how many different phones we can shop. But that's a better problem to have, especially for those family members who might walk into a phone retailer, maybe into a carrier store. They're just looking to buy something inexpensive. I'm not nearly as concerned they're going to walk out with a poor experience. This collection of parts we're seeing, Xiaomi, Redmi, Poco, it's really good stuff. I'm not trying to shortchange this phone by not giving it the same kind of 20-minute review that I do for a lot of my other phone reviews, but because we've seen so many similarities in this price tier, one of the things I want to focus on is maybe doing a better roundup and comparison between some of these label swaps and some of the other competition that are making some really inexpensive players too. So while I'm probably going to streamline my TCL 30V review, I really want to pit some of these other options directly against each other, so stay tuned. I'm hoping to put out a broader look at a comparison video with a couple different options to pick from. And I'll be posting a poll to the Patreon in a couple days from when this publishes. It's been a while since I've done a camera deep dive on a really inexpensive phone. So I'll have a post up with options to pick my next camera review. It's something I really want to play with here because we've seen so many evolutionary upgrades to camera tech sub $300. I will, of course, leave some links down below where you can find more information on Redmi phones, maybe shop one of these bad boys online. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All the support has been amazing, has been fantastic. If you're clicking those links under the description, or if you're shopping a little merch, that kind of stuff really does help keep production rolling on this channel. Full list, all my affiliates and partnerships, SomeGadgetGuy.com, or you might consider, just maybe, checking out the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is a collection of the coolest tech pals in the world, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I will catch you all on the next review.